Good evening, everyone. It is late Sunday evening as I am recording this. I thought I would put together a little video about the Joking Open that happened yesterday and doing a little bit of a metagame breakdown. Congratulations to Genghis Prawn, of course, for taking down the whole event. There were 21 players who showed up to play, and Genghis Prawn walked away with a scrubland. So big congrats and ups to him for his accomplishment. I want to kick us off by talking a little bit about the colors of the meta. We saw a ton of Sans Red decks. There were only a few 2-color decks. Everything else was 4 or 3 or more, and there were almost half the field of the 21 decks were 4 or more colors. So people really liked bringing 3 colors and 4-color decks, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense apparently to stay low to the ground and stay within 1 or 2 colors. And I think that is kind of representative of the archetypes that we saw. There were 2 people who brought aggro decks. Almost everybody else wanted to play combo. And this mid-range is a bit of a misnomer because I kind of lumped tempo and control and mid-range and low range all sort of into this. If it wasn't distinctly an aggro deck, I sort of put it here. So you can make the case that Impulse's Jeskai deck is a control deck, the Izzet decks were tempo, and maybe the check piles were control. And you'd want to break this mid-range out a little bit more, but for the sake of ease, just essentially, fast fare, medium to slow fare, unfair. Sort of how I broke this down. And it's very interesting to see this much combo and this much mid-range. Aggro apparently not interesting for people. And that's somewhat indicative, given that red and white were the least played colors. People were very happy to be in the bug range of colors. Of course, Sans Red contributing again to this massive dearth of red decks not being present in the metagame. This is a full list of all the decks. You can slow and pause this and take a look at what the points were. You can take a look at how every single deck did. I wanted to talk briefly about the specific deck lists here. So we have this huge chunk of Sans Red combo. So Sans Red, while representing 7 decks in the metagame, were 7 combo decks. 4 Time Vaults, an O3 Animator, a Nadu combo deck, and a Tinker combo deck. Is a Tinker Citadel deck, Tinkering, Turbo Ring. For mid-range, of course, we had the check piles, we have Sultai, we had, Jeskai, we had flavors, Jund, Abzan. The Abzan mid-range deck was, more of a lands mid-range deck. The Jund ones have, the Inquisition hand attack package. It's relatively similar the way all of these decks line up. There's not a lot of distinction for these different mid-range things. The Izzet ones are on moons, but they all come back to the same general idea of playing these very powerful cards like Ragavan and Tamiyo and, Lelia in the more aggressive versions of the decks. And so there was an argument, I think, to make that these Jund decks were more aggressive than mid-range and maybe could be classified as aggro. But the Naya Monsters deck was so abundantly clearly aggro that, there's a little bit of lines being blurred here, and I'm certainly no expert. Though I think Crotash listed his Jund list as a mid-range deck, and so I guess that's the measure I'll be going off of for this one here. In terms of combo, there were 2 Reanimators, like pure Esper Reanimators, plus an O3 Animator. So there's 3 Reanimator decks that I could see, 5 Artifact combo decks, and a Nadu combo deck, an Authorical combo deck. So 3 Reanimator, 4 Time Vaults, and then some other spread combos. Pretty much looking at these 10 combo decks, we are not seeing a particularly diverse set of combo. The best things to be doing right now are Artifact-based combos and Reanimator-based combos, which has been, I think, really been felt by me when I'm as a primary combo player. I wouldn't be bringing a deck that wasn't Time Vault or Reanimator to a tournament, and that's pretty much what people decided to bring. And I don't think anything, I think 1 Time Vault and 1 Reanimator combo deck made the top 8, although I don't know for certain. You'd have to do the math over here and figure it out for me. I wanted to generate this points record thing, which is just basically I wanted to see which pointed cards showed up the most. We saw a lot of cards, a lot of people tutoring. A big function of that is that you have these combo decks like the Reanimator cores that are tutor spreads, and then of course there was a lot of fair tutor decks. One of these Jund decks was on Sol Ring Demonic Tutor, Tina Pact, so on a tutor spread. The other one was on Triple Mox, and we saw a lot of demonic tutors. Both of the Nadu combo deck, the O3 animator deck were on demonic tutor. One of the Sans red or the Sans white mid-range decks was on demonic tutor. So people really wanted to be tutoring with these cards, and so we saw a lot of them. 9 copies of Tina Pact, of course, 2 of those being played in the Time Vault decks. The Time Vault spread was all 4 decks were on Time Vault, Tolarian Academy, Mana Vault, 2 on Tainted Pact, 2 on Mystical Tutor. So these are the top tutors for people to be playing within their combo decks, and then of course you get your 4 Time Vaults. Most interestingly is what I think down here, we saw no flashes, no crypts, no drains, no spell seekers. That's not true. I know there's a spell seeker. I thought I fixed that. Did I spell seeker wrong? Spell seeker? Whatever. There's at least 1 spell seeker. It's in this deck. So that's this is wrong. I don't know why. I'm not going to fix it though. True Name Nemesis and Underworld Breach also saw 0 play. There's a lot of 1-point cards. Apparently, if you're Impulse, you do well enough to justify playing Day Through Time and Time Walk. But blue spread is blue spread. These cards, of course, are still good, but only a few copies of them. I also had this generated. I don't think this information is particularly relevant. I would love to see these numbers with like a much bigger data set, but I put it together for just people who are interested to peruse it. I think the most interesting aspect of the data that I have is the cards that were played. So this is a full master list, and you can see people played a lot of basic islands. That's going to be thanks to these 2 Izzet Tempo decks, of course, sleeving up a bunch of islands. And of course, fetches always end up being at the top. Tons of wastelands. As we go further down, you're going to see our first duel, Underground Sea. Looking back at the metagame, this is what we would expect to see: a lot of blue, black, green. Caracas, of course, seeing a lot of play. Only 13 white decks, 12 of them on Caracas. I'm not sure which white deck wasn't playing Caracas, but it's one of the options, of course. Urza Saga, the most highly played, busted directly to board, have a plan as a land. A lot of shifting woodlands. Interesting here. Taking a look at Planeswalkers. Tameo, Teferi, Minskimbu, Renin 6, Oko. Makes a lot of sense what we would see here at the top. 10 Tameos across 16 blue decks. I wonder which 6 blue decks chose not to play Tameo. I know one of them was Impulse because he said he didn't have one and didn't have the ability to print one in time. It is surprising to me to see 6 blue decks excluding this card. So let's see. For these 2 here, Gruul decks, we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So of the 7 decks that could choose to play the Gruul cards, 6 of them in fact did choose to do so. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I wonder if it was this 5-color lands deck that maybe chose not to play it, or maybe Naya Monsters. Well, Naya Monsters is definitely playing Minskimbu, but we can clear the Planeswalkers, go take a look at creatures now. And I also am, to some extent, just sort of showing you guys this so you can actually pause the video and scroll and get information from this. Tameo still showing up under the creatures, of course. Barrelgoyf, Orcish Masters, Ragavan, all coming in top. I think Ragavan was really popular at the previous Joking event, so not surprising to continue to see it on top. Of course, one of the highest played creatures relative to its presence in the colors. We saw 9 Barrelgoyfs and 9 Bowmasters of the 17 possible decks that could choose to play them. Again, it does surprise me a little bit to see some of these cards excluded. I don't know what decks are choosing not to play Barrelgoyf. Certainly, I guess probably the Time Vault decks are not playing it. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So that sort of explains why these ones aren't seeing as much play. It's going to be some of those combo decks. Lots of dorks. I think we did see a decent amount of Jund. The Abzan deck, the Naya deck. These decks are going to be on your dorks, so we're seeing a decent amount of those. Fury also 8 out of 10 possible copies. Seeing a lot of play. Sort of interesting here. Troll and Uro coming in down here at 7. Taking a look at sorceries, tons of ponders, almost as many preordains, almost as many Gitaxian probes. Blue and black absolutely dominating the top 6 slots here. This is the least surprising thing I have ever seen. There are 3 cantrips, the 3 best cantrips that I put in every blue deck, and the 3 best hand attack spells that I put in every black deck. Lorien Revealed, one of the best blue land spells available, and then Reanimate. So, very unsurprising here to see Reanimate. A lot of people have been playing it and finding success with this, even in mid-range decks. And these sort of 6 staples standing out above the rest make a lot of sense to me. And then these are, of course, very flexible cards that end up in most decks at this point. Mental Misstep and Spell Pierce and Swords to Plowshares. I am honestly quite surprised to see Spell Pierce this high. That is not a card that I would typically think of as being one of the most played instants in our format. Misstep Swords, that makes a lot of sense to me. We did see a lot of Golgari, of course, with Jund being quite present, Sans Red being quite present, Sans White being quite present, and there being plenty of blue. I guess it'd be these 2 here, black and green. So Abrupt Decay seeing that much play, of course, being uncounterable helps you play a lot into those blue, and then Force of Will coming in clutch. The best instant cantrip, consider, of course, making the top. I was going to say, where the hell is Brainstorm? And realized that I had not scrolled to the top. So that of course makes perfect sense. The best cantrip showing up on the top of the blue instant list. Once again, blue dominating the top of these instants, and just as it was dominating the top of these sorceries. We have our next best set of removal spells coming in here, our next best set of counter spells, and a Tainted Pat, of course, the most popular pointed card in this event. Tainted Pat's a good Magic card. I wonder what enchantment is number 1. Oh, it's Urza's Saga. Of course it is. This card is phenomenal. A top tier land, a top tier enchantment. I would not be surprised to see this one go to 1, but it did show up in almost half of the decks that we saw. Of course, a core staple behind a lot of the Time Vault decks, and just generally a very strong card. Most of the rest of them are not particularly interesting. I don't think we saw a couple land strategies. Springheart and Tuco doing phenomenal work in the Abzan lands deck, and I think it was in a couple, maybe 1 or 2 of the Jund decks. Makes a lot of sense to me. Last but certainly not least, looking at the artifacts here, the One Ring coming out on top, super unsurprising. I probably would have expected Chrombox to be higher, but this card's very, very good. It's a core functionality for a lot of the combo decks. It's very low downside. I think there are 10 combo decks, and I don't think all 10 combo decks played it, because I know I saw this in a couple of the mid-range decks. I think one of the Jund decks was playing it, but certainly a very strong card. And then otherwise, it's just going to be ramping out things here with these pieces of fast mana, or one of the 6 artifact decks. Well, 5 artifact decks and the lands deck, or one of the 2 of the lands decks. So, finding the Clarion Academy is apparently a really good idea. Here are the best cards sorted by all the best white cards. I'm just going to go through each of these. I think there's not a lot for me to commentate on these so much as just I think it's interesting, and I think you guys will enjoy having access to this information. The best blue cards. I guess not necessarily the best, just the most popular. And you got black for you. Man, that's crazy. How many decks could have played Psychic Frog? 7. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Wow. That is very surprising to me to not see as many Psychic Frogs. I think that's wrong. I think the people should have probably been playing Psychic Frog. Best red cards. Classic Ragavan, Classic Bolt. Yeah, not a lot of red. Oh, look at all these goblins. And then green to finish this out. Cool. Well, it is my bedtime, so I'm going to wrap this up, upload this, and go to sleep. But yeah, hopefully this was a little bit interesting and very interesting to see what people chose to bring. I think the piece that I learned the most from all of this is just that people don't think aggro is very good right now, which really reinforces how I feel about the format. So hopefully we will have some changes coming soon to address this disparity.